you see, life's not fair, is it, my little friend? While some are born to feast, others spend their lives in the dark place. In the circle of life. Run away, Simba, and never return. You must set your exist together in a delicate balance. While others search for what they can take, a true king searches for what he can give.
In this video, we will dab into the movie The Lion King 2019. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide the reviews and personal reactions. Let's begin with the movie story. The sun rises over the Pride Lands. Animals from all corners of the kingdom head over to Pride Rock. King Mufasa and Queen Sarabi are welcoming the birth of their CB Simba, the Mondil Rafiki parent. Simba before all the animals, and they all bow before the new prince. A little mouse is squaring around his environment until he comes across of the vicious Scar, Mufasa's jealous brother, before he can door. The mouse Scar is interpreted by Mufasa's HBLE major demo, Zazu. He wants SC, that Mufasa is on his way to Castex him for missing out on the ceremony for Simba. Sure, enough Mufasa arrived to confront his brother, just as Scar is trying to make lunch out of Zazu. Scar expresses his death for not getting his place on the throne after Mufasa. Now that Simba is born after Mufasa and Zazu leave, Scar looks on with scorn. Rafiki is by his tree, where he uses several busts to form a dry of Simba on the tree time passes, and Simba is an eager and cautious little cub. He wakes up his father so that he can explore for the Pride Lands. Mufasa explained that everything in the Pride Land is theirs. By anything beyond the borders is forbidden from venturing into. He also tell his son that they are connected in the great circle of the life in regards to his duty as a future king. Zazu then flies in for the morning report before Mufasa teach Simba how to punch on the bird. Moments later, Zazu tells Mufasa that he has spotted Hian. Mufasa orders Simba to go to Shry. Simba goes to Scar, who rests alone on his own little truck, as Simba expresses curiosity over what's beyond the borders of the Pride Lands. Scar tells him that it's an elephant graveyard. Simba then goes to find his best friend Nala, who is in the middle of a bee. Simba cares his own bath from Sabi before he tells Nala that he wants to go to the watering hole. But Sabi makes the cups take Zazu as a capron on their walk. Simmer tells Nala where they are. Along Zazu notice them together, and notice how see it is to see two Bethard cups together. Their grosses out. Simba and Nala, who insist they are only friends. Zazu says those are the rules, and Simba says he is going to change some of these rules when he becomes king. I just cannot wait to be king. The cops lose Zazu, Amit, the other animals before they can head to Elephant Graveyard. While exploring, they are found by a pack of Hies led by Sansi Kamari, and Izi Sansi is raised to eat them once he Riala, who Saibi even as Zazu flies in to warn her that doing so would start a war with Mufasa. She attacks, but Zazu manages to hold her off long enough for SBA and Nala to run away. The pug then surrounds the cubs. Simba tries to roar at the high KN, but merely musters up simple crawls as they laugh and ask him to do it again. A louder roar is here. Mufasa runs in and fight off the hiss before ordering Sansi to back off or face retribution, the highest retreat. But Mufasa is upset at Simba as he takes him and Nala home. Mufasa has Zazu take Nala home. While he talks to Simba, he expresses his disappointment in him, where Simba tries to defend himself by saying that he was trying to be brave, like Mufasa. He tells Eaton that he is only brave when he needs to be, and that he was afraid of. Losing Simba, they then sit to look up at the stars, and Mufasa tells Simba that the great kings of the past are looking down on them. The Haz returns to their hideout, complaining about their league of food. It is then shown that Scar is leading them, and he deliberately lead Simba and Nala to their path. He then tells the Haz about his plan to kill Mufasa, so that he will lead the Pride Lands, and this will also mean more food for the Haz. The next day, Scar brings Simba via George to practice his roar. After he leaves Simba alone, he gives to Hines the signal to make their move. Certainly, Simba looks up at the cliff to notice a wild beast stamp it. He runs for it and climbs up a tree. For safety, Scar finds Mufasa and Zazu, warning his brother about Simba being trapped in the gorge, while telling Zazu to alert the less Mufasa runs through the head of wild beast to reach Simba. He brings the cup up to safety, but is tacked away by the wild beast. Mufasa then starts climbing up the hill, only to be caught by Scar, who sinks his clone into Mufasa's SP with a stare look in his eyes. Scar tells Mufasa long live the king, and he smack his brother off the cliff to his demise. Simba watches helplessly, and his father falls into the stamped. He runs down and discovers MFA's body, tearfully pleading with him to wake up. Scar finds Simba and says it's all his fault that his father is dead, fearing for the consequences. Simba asked Scar what to do, and Scar ordered him to run away and never return. After Simba does, so he sends Shenzi, Kamari, and Izzy to chase after Simba and kill him. Simba outruns the Hais to the aid of a cliff, where he and the fourth Hais fall over Shansi, ordered the other two to make sure Simba's dead. But they figured to themselves that he could not have served the fall, and they are not eager to clamp down and check. Simba is seen hiding before continuing. His exhale Scar announces Bassa, death to the lest, and then sees that Simba was also killed. It fey his grief before walking up to Pride Rock to assume his new duties as king, and then brings the Hais out. Zazu and Rafiki watch from a distance and mourn Musafa and Simba. Simba walks alone for miles before ending up in a desert. He collapses in executions before a flock of Wure swoop in to try and eat him. They are interrupted by the Me-Cat and Veith dog, Dutin and Pumba, who scare off the vulture before Fing SBA. The two decide they should keep the cup, so that when he grows into an adult lion, he will be on their sight. Simba wakes up and is despondent, still blaming himself for his father's death. Teen and Pumbaa takes him in and show him how they live their lives according to their motto, Huna Matata. It means no worries. Since the other animals are friends, Simba cannot eat them, and now feeds on bugs. He spends more time with Teen and Puma, now growing into an under-Scar's reign. The PRI lands becomes devoid of sufficient foods and resources. Since the HS are bleeding everything dry, Nala expresses concern over how things have turned. Scar even tries to get Srai to be his queen, promising that she can dine with him, but she refuses. He then has the Highness eat the rest of his skill, leaving barely scraps of the Leslat. That at night Nala tries to leave Pride Rock, but she is spotted by Zozu, who knows that Scar will do to her if he catches her leaving. Therefore, he creates a diversion. To get Scar and H is to chase him, allowing Nala to get away after spending a day. Ching down on grabs. Simba, Teen, and Pumbaa lay down to look up at the scars as Timon and Pumbaa muse over what could be up there. Simba mentioned that what Mufasa once told him about the kings of the past. Looking down on them, Demon and Pumbaa love it up, which bothers Simba. He goes to be alone, and as he lays down, some 4 from his men flies off. It is blown away and goes through a few animals before it finds its way to the rug. He senses that Simba is still alive, and he rejoices Daman and Pumbaa are walking through their home while singing "The Lion Sleeps Tonight" before Nala attacks and chases after them. As they flee, Simba jars out and punches on Nala, but after she pins him down, he realizes who it is. Simba is excited to see his best friend again, while Nala is elated that Simba is alive. The two go off together to catch up, leaving Tim and Pumbaa, to realize that the 2 lions are becoming more than friends. However, the happiness is short-lived when Nala tells Simba that he needs to return home due to what Scar and the Highs have done, still feeling guilty. He refuses to go back. Nala leaves him when he becomes too stubborn and doesn't listen to her. Simba wanders off alone until he is found by Rafiki. He tells Simba that he knows FAA and that he is alive. Simba follows Raiki and is led to a lake. Raiki makes Simba see his reflection, which turns into the image of Mufasa up in the clouds. Simba sees and hears Mufasa as his face is illuminated by lightning. Mufasa knows that Simba has forgotten who he is, and therefore he forgotten his own father. He tells him to remember that he is the one true king. Now realizing his purpose, Simba runs off to catch up with Nala and Timon, and Pumbaa follow the 4, make it to the Pride Lands, and meet with Zazu. He is also happy to see Simba again. They see how booby the land looks and why it is urgent that they stop Scar. Simba has Teen and Pumbaa be live bit to distract the Highs and to let them get to. Pride Rose Simba sees Scar hurting Rabi. When she defies him again, everyone is time to see Simba returning, and he goes by his mother's side. Scar tries to turn the table on him by making Simba admit his guilt in Mufasa's death. Scar advances towards Simba, causing him to slip and hand over the Age of Pride. Shock lightning strikes a nearby tree, causing a fire down below Scar, then brags to Simba over how he looks, not realizing he is openly admitting his own guilt. For the line is to hear, he then whispers to Simba that he killed Mufasa, and Simba punches on a murderous Uncle Scar and flees to his crime. But then, since the Highs on the lion is beginning an all-out war, the lions battle the Highs, while Teen Pumbaa and Rafiki all get a few food licks in Simba. Then goes after Scar, who tries to run away when Simba confronts him. Scar blames the Highs and says that he was planning to kill them for their supposed crime. Scar begs Simba for mercy, and Simba order him to do the same thing he ordered him to do, as a cop run away and never return. Scar seems to agree to the T, but instead flings H. Ambers in Simba's face. The two then begins to fight, swinging clouds at each other until Simba gets the upper hand and knocks Karar off the edge of the cliff. He survives and sees the H is coming toward him. Unfortunately for him, the H's heed him, throw them under the bus, and they proceed to rip Scar to shreds. The rain falls over the Pride Land to wash away the fire. With the H is gone, the lion is gathered around Pride. Rock Zazu and Rafiki allow Simba his chance to ascent. He walks to the edge of Pride Rock and hears Mufasa by sing. Remember with that, he roars before the lest to become the new Lion King. The Pride Lands return to their farmer, Gory, looking beautiful and prosperous. Once again, Teen and Pumbaa have moved to be close to their friend Simba, and Nala are now king and queen, and Rafii present their Sikiara to the rest of the animals, therefore continuing the circle of life. The Lion King movie review. The Lion King is the third Disney remake this year to offer a new spin of an animated classic, and it also happened to be the studio's best for surpassing both Aladdin and Dumbo. The Jungle Bow directed John F.A.U. returned to the world of computer. Generated Animals is a visually stunning success that will run over fans of all ages, as well as making a whole bunch of money for Disney's talking on once of the animation. Powerhouse Most Beloved Films was always going to be a risky and over, but the epic patristic approach feels groundbreaking and offer the impression of something different even through the narrative, and many of the eshouts are practically beat for beat identical to the 1994 movie. One of the things that immediately makes 2019 The Lion King stand out from its fellow Disney remake is that the Vice cast is absolutely brilliant. Both J. Simba and Nala are bundles of frantic energy and joy, with strong singing VI that are showcases during their awesome radiation of "I just cannot wait to be king." That scene also features John Oliver, who as Zazu Mufasa and Simba's Avon advisor. The British comedian does a great job of crafting a performance that EOS Ron Atkinson's original portrayal, Siksik, adding a much-needed balance of snarl and compassion that was leaking in the original Chapel ear, is an absolute highlight as the VSC bringing a Shakespearean pathos to the proceedings. He planing singing voices briefly tease Butley in scores in a scene that will likely delight and disappoint longtime fans. In equal measure, the Doctor Strange actor is joined by a group of he's vied by Eric Ander Keane, McKelly, and the powerful Florence KBA as their leader, Shanzi. The group are solid as Scar's minion, but the more serious stone of the story this time around means that the Hershey's don't manage to recreate the crazed, frantic, and often slapstick energy that made the Outcast such fan favorite in the classic film. Beyond is wonderful if slightly underscored as a passionate and fair adult. Nala and Rard Glover adds a relatability and thoughtfulness to Simba. The stands out of the cast are Billy Allen and S.E. Rogen as Teen and Pumbaa, respectively, the pair light of every scene they are in with their dedication to doing nothing. They bleaknessed Homor and Eacher awesome singing voice, Tyr and Pumbaa add most of the new content to his retelling, with the pair riffing of each other with hilarious results. They also start in what was, for this reviewer, the most grass pump, including scene of the whole end-over, when they join GMRE, who kills it. And then Ronald Glore in an astronic fun and moving rendition of Hokanen Matata, while the Wise cast definitely elevates the film. The Lion King is at its heart all about the visuals. At the premiere, John Farr revealed that every single scene in the film, aside from one shot, was completely computer-generated. Not that you had know as you watch it if. The Jungle Book showcased the potential of what could be done with computer animation. The Lion King pushes the boundaries even further after feeling like you are watching a nature documentary. Rather than an animated features FA leans into one of the biggest strengths of the film. Longer extended shorts that showcases small moments in the stunning Pride Lands, like a trail of arts making their way up the bunch of a tree, a mouse washing in a paddle, or a piece of for floating across the waste landscape for the cute baby lines to the elected roster of animals that fill the screen. The animators of The Light King do a brilliant job of bringing the Wuai life of the Pride Lands to life, and for the most part, it works. However, something that is lost in the retelling is the visual emotion of the characters as the film goes for a photorealistic tone that leaves the core cost of animals looking like well animals. Although that might not gel with younger audience in the same way as the emotive animated creature that usually fill Disney movies, it does not mean that the more festival and musical moment doesn't work. There's a gravitas that suits the Shakespearean story that was not there before, but some of the emotional beats don't hit quite as hard. Despite all of the success of the film, it's hard to chage The Lion King completely objectively, as it is really just a scene-for-scene remake of the film that already exists and was artfully ripped off from an existing Osamu Tezuka anime Google Kimba. But with that in mind, Pharaoh and Co. do a great job of making The Lion King feel like a worthwhile and over that's a gang jamming. And in terms of the artistic technique that was used to create it, the film undoubtedly introduced a new generation of fans to the story, while still offering up something different enough visually that fans of the original will likely still find something new to love. Disney delivered their most successful remake, yet a strong cost, outstanding visual, and the classic animal central take on Helmet make the Infinity more watch than some of the studio's previous retelling. The only issue here is that The Lion King is a beat form adaptation that will make even the coldest SS warm with nostalgia, but could potentially disappoint those looking for a new take on the iconic story, The Lion King 2019 movie review. I tried to avoid spoiler as best as I can, but that aware that I reference well-known plot points from the 1994 animated version, The Summer of Disney, has its final release day, today July 19th, with The Lion King premiere in theaters. Since I am a total obsessive Disney super fan, and especially for Lion King, I obviously find a showing last night, and I am here to tell you all about it, well as much as I can, without spellers. The verdict: I loved it. It's spectacular and epic, glorious. Now let's start from the beginning. I had my expectation. F me in check, and we arrived at the theater early to have time to pursue the menu and have a spotty break. Yeah, we didn't have any kids with us, but I was not going to miss a single moment of this movie, so we had to enforce the kid rots on ourselves. I had to ask if they had any leftover posters from the fan event, which they did not, because the fan was most to a different Regal theater. That's when we find out our standard showtime had been switched to a 3D showing without them telling us. Being old and set in my V, I was super bumped. I fully prepared to see this movie the normal way, and I was not prepared for this last-minute change. But after such deltion, we choose to stay and try the 3D ironically. Hina K. Keegan, Matchel Key is fairly funny, is a grown-up short of V. Boney and Ed are not in this version. G plays Kamari and Eric Ander plays Izzy. They are A2, but they're harmer. Maybe the heads of younger audience members, they are funny. But Teen and Pumbaa will go over better with your audience. S. Rugen especially knocked it out of the park. As Pumbaa musical changes, the musical numbers are the most similar as the lyrics are, mostly unchanged. Be prepared, hire the most drastic changes, but still straight to the heart of the original. I was hoping against hope that they had. And include my favorite number from Broadway musical version of The Lion King called He Lives in You, but instead they gave Bounce a song titled Spirit. It's beautiful, but feeds a little out of place, and where the places within the film, but I'm also best towards the Broadway song. I want it included. Bean did a truly wonderful job. As Nala, and I had been worried about Nala, is one of my favorite characters, and Bion is known as a single, but she blew me away and gave Nala a strong and Molic voice that stood up for what she thought was right. As far as the 3D aspect, it was actually really cool. If you have the opportunity to see it in 3D, I recommend it. It's often subtle and so well done that multiple times I wonder that little bug was part of the movie or real. It was always part of the movie. It's really well done and enhanced the movie without being distracting. And the 3D trailer for Friend 2 made me ready for No to be here already. I do agree with other viewers that this film is definitely created for older audience, the violent scene F, longer and scarier than the animated ones, likely, because the animals are so very lifelike. There are a few moments with tangers of blood in there, for which is cheering the final battle is especially brutal and intense. Additionally, this movie feels more serious than its animated counterpart, and there are favor Hess moments to add. Levity, it's great for older kids, depending on your kid and adults. The Lion King reviews, what the critics are saying critics have been less than welcoming to the return of The Lion King 25 years after the original release. As of writing the film, hold a rotten score of 57 on Rotten Tomatoes, as has BW the 93 of the original. Common complaints are the photorealistic of the John Fave live-action adaptation, where critics adore the atropic singing cartoons of the original Diet. The nature documentary look draw a W between viewers and the beloved characters. Some credit PR the fidelity to the original, while others P the lee of. Originality here is what the critics are seeing. Peter Desay, by focusing his attention on upgrading the look of the earlier film while sticking largely to his tutorial chesses, and script Favre reinforces the strength of the 1994 classic. If you are never a fan of The Lion King, then nothing here will win you over. On the other hand, for those too young over to have seen it, this could be a life-changing experience, and that strives to create a kind of understanding between audience and the animal kingdom that Disney once made a regular part of its mission back in the era of film, such as The Legends of Lobo and The Incredibility Journey. It's a shame to sacrifice the hand-drawn artistry, whose human touch will surely hold a better in the long haul. But those are the time with this latest wave of remake and The Lion King. At least honor what came before using crun animation technology to convince us that we are watching the real thing. BABY says that technically speaking, it's a Marvel John Faves live-action remake of Disney's The Light. King possesses all the immersive details and tactile idency of an unusually good-natured documentary. It transports us. We can practically feel the four on these animals, and we want to duck away from their thundering heels, and the camera breathlessly rushes us through trembling growths and sea rindies. It's hard to imagine that this has all been created in the studio, and that almost none of it is real. I'd be a great cause of how did they do that? Expect that they did it so well that you forget that they did anything at all. All the line is singing. Well, how bonds that I didn't know a line could sing. But there is a real line singing. That's a good news. The not so good news is that having entered the photo realistic R, The Lion King's mood too has changed. Suddenly, the iconic opening scene with all the animals gathering to be before the new par line. See Simba held up like some sort of scamper of absolute power doesn't feel dement are moving as it did. It's in fantastical animated setting it feels cly. Arena clubs, AA doubt joyless artless, and maybe soulless, is transforms one of the most striking Titus from the mouse house vaulted into a very expensive star Disney nature film joist. Artless, and maybe Stet, is transforms one of the most striking Tigers from the mouse house vault into a very expensive stared Disney nature film. It's as if every creative decision were subordinate to the film's misguided intenses, on realism, on keeping the manism of Ms. of these magically intelligent creatures believable, and so all the player are not just secondhand, but diminished. We are watching a hollow buoys of a blockbuster at once completely rent on the audience pre-established affection for its proer and strangely determined to John much of what made it special. USA Today. Brian T.R. was the Lion King really in need of a swap-up version? Nope, the original H-up exceeding well and honestly has the AG and overall charm. Pharaoh at least loves and respect the story enough to do it. Just take as well as lean into the core theme, the interc. Correctness of us, although the circle of life, if she will, it's not just talk about, but filed in due ways, that Mongi Scar with his freaky Jews and Eater's vicious workers is the new poster boy of our Britty, and the moment when Simba tearfully snuggle up next to his fallen father will run you all over again, even more so than 25 years ago, because of how Ursa's powers, word and characters are. This Lion King does an okay job roaring to life for a new generation and looking spectacular along the way. The OG, however, will always be the real main attraction IndieWire Davis Aying unfold, like the world's longest and least convincing Dika John Pharaoh. Photorealistic remake of The Lion King is made to represent the next step in Disney's circle of life, and say, the Sist Sharma of a film comes off a little more than a glorified touch demo from a greedy conglomerate, a well-rendered but creatively bankrupt self-portrait of a movie studio eating its own tail. Most often, the animation is just planned in a way that saps the characters of their personalities. Scar used to be a Shakespearean villain brimming with catrig and clate frustration. Now he just a line who sounds like Chevelle A.R. Sim used to be a sleek upstart, whose regal heritage was tempered by youthful insurity. Now he's just a line who sounds like Donut Clover watching, then come to blows against a realistic but deep background suggests that Favreau was so busy trying to figure out if he could, that he never stops consider if he should fair as talk. And yes, the vices on display is Jon Favreau. The Lion King are indeed impressive. The animation and technology that crafted a pretty great adaptation of the Jungle Book 3 years ago are in full swing in this adaptation of the blockbuster 1994 animated gem. However, like too many of these recent remakes of the Disney animated library, the emphasis in our realism at the expense of environment value at almost every turn. The redo undercards its own melodrama by downplaying its own emotions. The key direction seems to be like the 1984 version, but less like, with Aline, characters explain in details the choices they are making and the reason for those choices. It comes off like a mix of comic book adaptation of a movie, birth bubbles, and extraneous dialogue makes up for the lee of movement, and actors who sound like they have forgotten their lines and are winning it. From memory of the 1994 FCK visor is just about padding a 90-minute feature to 2 hours are playing to the online demographics that view very SE as a plot hole. These films come off like the original stories retrofitted as Paris school cartoons via Lisa Vincent. The photorealism is striking and impressive, but something feels weird about the Vice. It's not like people cannot imagine talking lines, of course, but it's distracting in a way that's not real. It's uncanny and disjointed at the same time, as if real animals are being aged. So, The Lion King now has its very own pig cover album, rendered in intricate, realistic details, a high-fidelity bide of its many devoted fans, but it might in the end leave you wishing for the slightly scores up. Valley Original, Ignan Rosie, KN Disney delivered their most successful remake, yet a strong card, outstanding visuals, and the classic Animal Gentric on Hellpet make the Infinity more watchable than some of the stud previous retailing. The only issue is, here is The Lion King is a beat-for-beat adaptation that will make even the coldest hearts beat with nostalgia, but could potentially dissent those looking for a new take on the iconic story, The Guardians. Peter Bradshaw, basically this new Lion King, sticks very closely to the original version, and in that sense it's of course watchable and enjoyable. But I miss the simplicity and V-ness of the original Handren. The circle of commercial life has given birth to this, all but Arlie Dig clone descendant. I don't quite feel like Boeing, but respect has to be paid to a handsomely made piece of entertainment. The El King 2019 live-action movie worthy of Pride Rock. 2019 has certainly been the years for Disney to make 90s kids excited in Disney. Latest live action, The Animals of 1994. The Lion King are brought to life. This classic was a favorite for both of us growing up, so needless to say that we have been pretty excited for this one this week. We were invited to be advance screening of the film, but unfortunately Andreo could not attentive to our conflicts. Julie decided to still go check it out anyway. However, does this reinvented version compared to the iconic film of our childhood? So let's. Baby Simba, I cannot just take the cuteness. Disney is The Lion King, directed by John Favor, journeys to the African Sana, where a future king is born. Simba idolizes his father, King Mufasa, and takes to heart his own royal Disney. But not anyone in the kingdom celebrates the new CB's arrival. Sakar Mufasa's brother and farmer, head to the throne, has plans of his own. The battle for Pride Rock is revenge with betrayal, tragedy and drama, ultimately resulting in Simba's exile. With help from a curious pair of newfound friends, Simba will have to figure out how to grow up and take back what is rightfully his. Staying true to the classic story, tractor John FBRO utilized his Ping film making technique to bring the iconic tractor to the big screen in a whole new way, featuring the Vi of Donald Glover and Simba Beyond Snow, Carter as Nala James, Harold Ginis as Mustafa Chevelle A for Escarsa Ran as Bomba, and Billy AER as Demon Disney. The L.I. King opened in U.S. theaters on July 19, 2019. Thoughts I remember back in the 90s, the theatrical preview for The Lion King was the entire Sea of Life sequence. That scene still gives me awesome as this movie opened in the same manners, with just as much B-factor as the animated version. And from the parent, I was transported into a story I loved by surrounding by FY creatures and micing landcap while we normally make sure to do spell-free reviews. The funny thing with the film is that there is nothing to really spell, as the movie is almost completely identical to the original. There's so many lines I caught myself reciting along with the character, and I noticed if one had been slightly altered. but even though it was super familiar and nostalgic, I still found myself engaged, waiting to see what would happen next. The production skills involved with this film were mind-blowing. The beautiful African landscapes and details look so freeing, authentic. I love seeing animals in real life. And so many M's had me convinced I was watching a documentary instead of a completely CGI word. Baby Simba remind me of my own caddies, and it was amazing to watch all of the different animal act as they would in real life. The one Dr. Back too, his real animals can never have as much expression as the animated version, with the sad Mufasa scene, which anyone should already know the voice of Shang Simba, surrounded in tears, but the realistic line just appeared to be talking. I still felt moved and misty-eyed. But I do wonder, do I have Noak's feelings from the old movie spelling over into this one what I have felt as emotional, as if this new version were the only film that existed? I have always loved the original soundtrack, and it sly set the stage for one of my favorite. Broadway shows the new version, keep the song and adds a new ones. They are more background and end credit type song as new scene. It did seem a little tougher to the execute some musical numbers without colorful animation. Like I Just Cannot Wait to Be King, for example. But the singing quality was exceptional, and I enjoyed the new voices and small changes. The only exception to this was Be Prepared was a letdown. The landscape is grander and scarier than the cartoon. And I was expecting a big dramatic number, but it just was not. So I think the characters were all very well cast. Young Simba and Nala were adorable. The new Timon and Pumbaa seems perfectly suited for their roles and brought some great comedic relief. There were even a few slight twists on some of the old joke scenes. I found that I missed Jeremy Enns at SC. He had such a traumatic feeling. Flair, this car was mean and manipulative, but in more depressed way. It made me glad Jam Kal-jun rise his role. As Mufasa, other sporting characters seems to play their roles well. Also overall, I found the live action of The Lion King really impressive, and I came out for the theater very satisfied. It reminded me of how other Disney stories get translated into stage. Shows you already know the story characters and music, but it is still yun to see it in a different way. The stage here was authentic landscape and realistic animal actors. While I would have liked maybe a little twist and some news, at the same time I may have been more disappointed if the changes were not worthy, standing next to the original story. Well, this is not something I would probably pro-cash a copy of to own. I would most likely just watch the animated classic. Instead said, I do think it is absolutely worthy seeing in the theater. It is gorgeous and a great balance of Noya and news. My inner Lion King involving Ned Kid was transported back to seeing this in theater for the first time all over again. And if you want the ultimate vying experience spark on the fancy theater, I really doting the IMX screen and Dolby surround sound version I saw made for and even more impressive. Experience Disney. The Lion King feels like an unusually good-natured documentary. Is that what we wanted, technically speaking? It's a Marvel John Fart's live-action remake of Disney. The liking possesses all the impressive depths and tactile idency of an unusual good-natured documentary. It transports us. We can practically feel the four on these animals, and we want to take away from their thundering heels as the camera breathlessly rushes as through rambling grass and Kajai ravines. It's hard to imagine that this has all been created in a studio and that almost none of it is real. I be a great case of how did they do that? Expect that they did it so well that you forget that they did anything at all. Or the line is singing. Well, how's about that? I didn't know a line could sing. But there it is, a real line singing. That's the good news. That's not so good news in that having entered the photo realistic ROM. The Lion King's mood, too, has changed. Suddenly, that iconic opening scene with all the animal seemed to be before the newborn lion cub. Simba held up like some sort of specter of a absolute power, doesn't feel trait or moving as it did in it. Fantastical animated setting, it feels coldly at Ranium. But of course the filmmaker recognized that. So now when the old King Mufasa shows the young Simba the extent of his domain, everything the light touches in our kingdom, we now appropriately get some additional dialogue, but how it's not really this. It belongs to no one, but it will be yours to protect. But by and large this new Lion King used pretty closely to the animated Lion King, at times even replicating the same shots and adding pattern as the original, and the effects can feel like a stunt, like someone decided to do a scene-by-scene recreating using real-life animal footage. It doesn't help that the characters in some cases have been rendered with such realism that they have lost all human expression on their faces. Maybe that's the idea to do, not aze them too much and to stay grounded in zoological authenticity, but they are still talking and singing. Only now their faces are inexpressive. It's a white disconnect that creates an unfortunate hierarchy among the creator, allowing some to shine while leaving others to drift, and Asar, the convincing embedded uncle, who kills Mufasa and claims the throne for himself. Cheval AER brings the kind of hauling, snarling energies you had expect from a true Shakespearean. He connects to the story Regan possession. Of course, this way, also true of the original, which had the sensuous, slightly staling of Jeremy Irons whenever he is on screen. The film has genie and power as the GR up. Simba Donald Glover stays too. Above the free, he is ordinary a fine actor, but here we sense the distance between his character and his voice. It reminded me of how Disney's actual nature dogs, the Disney Nature series, will often have the narrator half-performed dialogue of the creatures on screen, just to keep things interesting, as Nala B suffers a similar fate. The talking line might look realistic, but when we hear her dialogue, all we see is Pouch in a recording booth, reading lines the comic relief characters split. The different Sean and Billy Onker are delightful as the farting watch talk. Pumbaa and his vicious Maret Palan. John Elward is plungashi in Nura's ears, irritating as Mustafa's even stared Zazo Fos, previous talking animal-heavy Disney live-action remake. The Jungle Book was a masterpiece of stylized Syrian fever dream that transforms the thickets and caves of its wide landscapes into a great stage for its operatic effet of petrol and bling whenever the lion. King stick with that approach. It works beautifully. Pride Rock the out popping on, which much of the movie's drama turns, and where the animal kingdom fate is decided looms. Have SLE in the character's mind when Simba takes his F-lonely bar to accept his royal Disney, his Seppos M of T. We can sense his Isation similarly. Scar's neological performance of Be Prepared, which in the original Wasta Demon, stale version of Marching Hinds and Roaring Hellfire makes of a munching issue of the Circle of Life opening scene, instead of making the entire sauna bow before his hire in the morning light Scar assemble his ghostly gathering of singers, as he leaps nearing and singing from rock to rock, ragging contus and prideful, while numbers like P.E., Prepared, and Puma, and Teensgauss Radiation of Hunabata retain their charm. The songs too are uneven in this new line, King Glover and Mude of Can You Feel the Love. Twite is as a piece of Hardio utterly glorious, and yet it has a little impact on screen, where for some reason it's performed in total daylight, because neither Simba and Nala has come through as an engaging character. The couple of new pieces that have been added also seems out of place, but that might be because the old songs are so familiar at this point. It all speaks to the uneven impact of this gruely no-expense parrot version of The Lion King. It's a starring reminder of what can be achieved with all the talent and money in the world, as well as the questionary tale of what can happen when there's no vision. To bind it all together, the Lion King 2019 movie, young Simba, is destined to become king of Pride Rock, like his father Mufasa. But his uncle Scar plots of the throne, and Simba on Zone in exile. Can he ever regain his kingdom? Another month, another Disney remake of an animated classic. There are two reasons, but that this film exists, and neither is because anything was missing. From 1994, Fwy Hamlet. The first is to show off generally tealing visual effect, technological marvel, that give us photo, real animal in an absolutely convincing setting. The second is to showcase the ability of Disney and director John F.A.O. following 2016 remaining of the Jungle Book to assemble a world-class, wise cast. But it's still not enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the great king of the past. It does not seem right to describe this as a live action, when the visuals were created in the London off of visual aspects, visits MPC, whatever this category. The immediate and overwhelming impression is so lifelike that you have expect David Attenborough to start narrating at any moment. Every hire and whisker is in place. Every footprint rises a poof of dust. You will believe that Pride Rock is a real place somewhere in Africa, watching over a landscape kept in careful balance by the straight ship of its great Lion King, Mufasa. He is, once again by Jams, a Jonas, because something are sacient even in his mixed rage. Our hero, Mufasa, as Simba. JDMRE, replaced in adulthood by Donut Glover, is just as good and clumsy as ever, as he takes his first step into the big white world. The big problem with this photo. Realism, however, is that animal mouth are not designed for words, and their faces do not express human emotion. What we gain in realism, we lose in expression, even in their limps. Eye is distally charring when these cats speaks, and even more when they break into songs. You cannot help but mentally impose the performances of their 2D procedure, and see for more well animation in the older characters. The emotional gap is somewhat covered over by talented vice cast, with Javal Jofer making a biter jet detective, and carefully conceived without ever entirely justifying its existence. A few Nook song increase the running time and chances of an Oscar jet, mean it sometimes drags before the last PR return. To reclaim his throne, the Lion King movie review, Disney remake adds more style than substance. The Lion King is good because the original animated movie was great. It does feature standing CGI that Disney is clearly excited to show off the latest of Disney's live action. Treasuring of films from its animated classics, Vault is not actually a live action movie at all. But the hyper-realistic CGI remake of The Lion King is recent years. VA Disney Study has started taking its most beloved animated movies and translating them to live action, sometimes meeting major changes, and other times sticking as close to the original as possible, directed by Jon Favreau, who helmed another CGI-heavy Disney, reminding in 2016, The Jungle Book, The Lion King falls into the latter category of remaining true to the original 1994 animated movie. The Lion King is good because the original animated movie was great. Tia does feature stunning CJ that Disney is clearly excited to show off. The Lion King follows Shang Line Cup, Simba played by J.M.R.E. and Donald Clover, who is raised as Prince of the Breed Lands and expected to become king after his father Mufasa, played by James Earl Jonas, with his friend Nala Weiss by Shahari. R. Joseph and Bion call Scarter as his queen, but Mustafa's brother Scar Weiss by Chap. Luer plots with the lion's enemies, the Heshenzi Kamari and Aizi, to take over the Pride Lands to execute his cop. Scar kills Mufasa and convinces Simba. It was all his fault, but the Hest failed to kill Simba like the army too. Instead, Simba runs away and is taken by Tyr and Pumbaa and grows up with them for removed from the PR lands. However, Simba's PA and his responsibility catch up with him, and he realizes he must return home to make things right. DED by Afro from a script by Jeff Netson PRCE of the Caribbean. Teeman Noyles, The Lion King is a fairy. St. STCT remake of the original 1994 movie. Because the films was crafted using animation and CGI, the major difference between the two largely account for the style in which they were created, while the 1994 film used unrealistic styles animation EVAOS. Lion King focused heavily on realistic portrayal of its animal characters at times to its own detriment. There's only so much a VR or a market or a line can physically do. They cannot convey emotion the way human faces do. They don't actually speak English, and they cannot perform widely. Extravagant musical numbers. Instead, FAO and his team seen animal expression and minism on the characters, like Demon Agli standing up in the manners of real Ammers, making them more real, but causing them all to feel much more flat in the crease. The spectacle of the moving stems from the feat of creating hyper-realistic animals, rather than anything the animal actually do. As a result, the animals of The Lion King are more animal than human, which carriers an emotional distance said they must be bright by other aspects of the film, and which largely falls on the shoulders of the voice actors, because Disney and Favor samples an outstanding cost. They help to bring these animal characters to life with a great deal of immunity. M shines as young Simba, embodying the line cup's arrogance and devastation in equal measure, but with much of the movie focusing on Simba's childhood. It's difficult not to feel as if Disney vetoed the vice Daners of Clover and N. Carter, thought do the thing can you feel the love, be night together, ear ran, and John Ehlers are, well, suited to the rules of Team Pumbaa and Zazo respectively, and they are TK, with much of the updated, more modern comedy in The Lion King, which works well enough. AAR is good, but not particularly memorable, as Scar, while Jonas again embodies the regal and vice Mustafa with gravitas. One thing The Lion King has going for it is spice and sheer spectacle in its CG rendering of the animals. Disney proof they could animate hyper-realistic animal with The Jungle Book, and they take it a step further by constructing the entire cast of The Lion King with incredibly realistic CGI. Certainly it's worth modeling it, just what Disney has accomplished with the film, even if certain SC some crosses overlong sequence of the studio, simply showing off much of the additional 30 minutes to The Lion King's run, time and see spectacles, which may work for dues coming to see the movie for that very reason, but comes off as brish do, irritated by the spectac seasons, slowing down the overall pace of the movie. Yet viewers are looking for a movie worthily sporting on IMX this summer. The Lion King is undoubtedly, yet ultimately The Lion King is only as good as it is, because it's working of the excellent 1994 animated version. The story, much of the script, and the majority of the music all come from Disney's previous film, The Studio, and F put a more realistic spin on the animal characters, but the difference is not necessarily better. It's simply a different style that has its own advantage, as with the stunning CIA animals, and disadvantages, like the restrictions of reality taking away some of the magic of the premise. Thankfully, the story of the Lion Kings is good enough to transist. Still, the retelling is sure to strike an emotional C with those that grow up watching Disney's animated original, and this latest live action. Imagining seems bound for success, thanks to mixture of nostalgia and spectacle. So while Disney The Lion King reimagining is a perfect enjoyable movie, gang experience, it may leave some viewers wanting more or wanting to watch the animated classic. Instead, The Lion King 2019 box office performance. The Lion King 2019 is the movie that does good in the box office and earned $1.6 billion box office. The Lion King rule with $192 million debit Simba and Mufasa reign supreme this weekend as Disney's The Lion King dominated box office charts. Director Jon Favreau's remake of the animated classic collected a massive $199 million from 4,756 North American theater during its first 3 days of release. The study initially reported that The Lion King debit with $185 million, but that number increased when final sales were retailed on Monday. And yet another V for Disney. The movie landed the best domestic launch it for a PG film and set a new record off for the month of July. That figure also represents the second best domestic T-bid of the year, behind Disney and Marvel's Avengers Endgame, $307 million after this weekend, and Binu Vesta Company now holds 5 of the top 6 biggest movies of 2018 so far overseas. The Lion King filled the love with $269 million for a global start of $433 million the film launches in China last weekend, and has since earned $98 million, posting the worldwide haul to $533 million. We have a lot to celebrate, Kath to Disney's president of global distribution said on a Sunday morning call, The Lion King has such a resonance in pop culture that you see all different types of people coming out. People wanted to be part of this. The state-of-the-art technology. Choose to bring the Pride Lands and its inhabitants to life. Draw a polarizing response from viewers, but the newest version of Disney's Crown Jail Pro to be T-Tick-proof, and the prospect of hearing Tet Clover Simba and Panala Harris to Disney's classic were arrestable movie course flock and mess, and too much AIism to see Simba's grand return to the big screen The Lion King holds, and S-score audience also shelled out to see the hyper-realistic movie in the best quality possible. IMX Theater accounted for $25 million of tickets sold, with 36% of global ticket sales came from 3D screens. The Lion King provided a much-needed jaw to the domestic box office heading into the weekend box office receipt. We're pacing over 9% behind last year. Now theoretical earnings are down just over 7%, according to Kame Score. The Lion King is already one of the most recognizable stories across the world, but the remake benefited from an equally buoy vice cost, including Clover as Simba Bon, as Nala, Chaer, as SC, and Billy Aer and Essa Rogan as Teen, and Pimba Jam. Cyril John reprised his role as Mufasa from the original movie. The updated version also included a new song from Beyond Disney as Remat 5 versus Classics to mostly consist success outside of The Lion King 2017. Beauty and the Beast had the strongest start with $124 million. Follow it by 2010 Alice in Wonderland launched it with $116 million in 2016. Favor of The Jungle Book earned a strong $103 million in it, and roll weekend in May. Guy reaches Aladdin DED with $91.5 million and is approaching the $1 billion mark globally. However, Tim Burton STOSTBL with $45 million earlier this year's in a banner weekend. For Disney, the studio is now home to the highest grossing movie in history. Avengers Endgame gross $2.78 billion at the global box office, officially detouring the 10 years record of Jam's Kemun AAR, since other Hollywood studio refrained from releasing a movie against The Lion King. A number of holders filled out domestic box office charts. In a distant second place, Sony Spider-Man Far From Home collected $21 million during its third weekend in theater, lifting domestic ticket sales to $319 million. The web-sling superhero Adventure has generated $569 million at the international box office. Disney and Peck's Toy Story landed in the third with $14 million in 5 weeks. The animated movie has generated $375 million in North American and $859 billion globally, making it the 7-pixel fill to surprise the $800 million mark. At number 4, Paramount Alligator Thriller Crawl generated $6 million for a domestic totally of $20 millions. Rounding out the top 5 in Yuanel musical rom-com Yesterday, which pocketed $5.1 million during its 4th week begin of release. The movie has crossed $57.5 million to date among practically released Sony Picture Classics Open It documentary. David Crosby Remember My Name in 4 location where it earned $41 million star. Meanwhile, A24 expanded Ludo. The Farewell 235 location in its second weekend, generating a promising $1.17 million. The comedic drama started Ain't a Deed National on 2-1 live action, liking tracking for biggest Disney remake opening weekend. The Lion King is projected to rule the box office this summer and could set a new record for Disney's live-action remake. Over the last several years, Disney interest in rematching their classic animated movie has grown as a result of some massive box office success. It began with Alice in Wonderland, glassing over $1 billion at the box office in 2010, which has lat, followed by The Jingle Books, just coming short of that. Mark in 2016, then in 2017, the remake of Beauty and the Beast dominated the box office on its way to a $1.2 billion haul, with Aladdin now out in theater. The next live-action remake that Disney has coming up in The Lion King, which is one of their most popular animated movies. Ever thanks, in large parts, to built-in interest, many have anticipated The Lion King performing exceptionally well at the box office. The trailers have not shown a lot, as Disney appears to be CED playing of the Nalaya. A large percentage of the population has, for the title with under 2 months to go. Before it, his theaters, the first real sign that D's feeling will translate into Disney's financial gain, or here according to Box Office Pro, the long-range tracking for The Lion King is anywhere between $180 million and $230 million. Their CR projection is almost right in the middle with the side. Expecting The Lion King to open to $2,011 million domestically. If The Lion King does land somewhere in this range, it will have the biggest opening weekend of any Disney live-action remake, breaking Beauty and the Beast record of $174 million. An opening of this size would be a massive start for The Lion King and continued KRA here at the box office. They currently have the 2 highest grossing movies worldwide and domestically in Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame. It is important to remember that this tracking is still several weeks out, and the eventual critical exception will have some impact on actual opening weekend projections, with John facting and a star-studded cast that includes Donald Clover Beyond, Seth Rogen, Joel Eddy-Four, and the return of Champ Sorrell. John Straw, there's a significant appeal for The Lion King. Already, should The Lion King beat this projection, which include a $600 million domestic total, Disney live-action remake practice could only grow. They have Marn coming out in the first half of next year, with CA starting EM. Stone set to close out 2020. There's also new on The Little Marvet in the work, as well as Lady and The Trap Heeing to Disney. Plus this year, Disney even has sequel to their remake on the way, with Malik said Mistress of Evil moved up to his fall, and The Jungle Book to in early development if The Lion King hits. As big as these projections say it will, then it may only be matter of time before Disney starts working on Lion King 2. The Lion King 2019 movie reviews. The Lion King 2019 recently directed, John Favreau defended his remake of the animated classic The Lion King to USA. Today saying it's not completely a short remake upon hearing this. I became hopeful that this remake might be similar to his version of the Jingle Book, which had its flaws, but took a new approach to Moggy and to the ending that I appreciate it, now having seen new remake. I am quoted by bio words because aside from the visuals, I saw no noticeable story difference between it and the animated classics. It's as close to a short remake of a film as I have ever seen critics damn it, as it compared it to the remake of a Cobus Kesson Son. And he is absolutely correct. Of course, the new version of The Lion King will make B-Lord of money. But if you are asking for the critics' advice, I would give it a definite skip. Let's start off talking about the film's greatest strength, the visuals. Despite Disney reticence to use the term they are on incredible achievement in animation, the reason I believe they have not wanted to use the word is because it is one thing to remake an animated film with live action, but to remake an animated film with another animated FN feels like even more of a copycat than all the others, particularly in white shorts. The photo realistic. It's impressive. It seems hard to believe that everything down to the smallest plate of cross is fabricated on a computer, and yet that it is the reality. If people want to see this film from the visual alone, I would not fault them, but I guess I was hoping to have more to recommend. Given the original film is such a favorite of mine, there are other positive, like the voice cast and all component, and the music songs are well executed. However, I was a little disappointed. Only one song from the Broadway musical is included as song as over the credits, and the one original song, Spirit, is just an accomp to transitional scene when the characters are walking. I was hoping it would be part of a new narrative for Nala, but that is not the case. The only song I did not like was their rendition of Be Prepared, which fit like such an afterthought. It's one of my all-time favorite Disney villain songs, and it came and went through making any impact. There was no spectacle or gravitates, which made Scar as much as interesting villain. The best part of the film, character-wise, Steeman and Pumbaa. Their scene was identical to the original, have the most energy and life to them. They are also the cest to being believable as actually talking and singing animals. With the Lion and other characters, their mouth movement never quite work with their faces, not matching the words' lyrics in a natural, easy way. Maybe because real animals mock visual sounds like a P.O. or a roar, rather than formulating whole words. There's also a problem with the photorealistic characters' inability to emote in a way. A 2D animated characters can little Simba in the original can have big tears well up in his eyes, and his whole face can be full with the emotions of losing his DS. That's not possible with a photorealistic line. Therefore, renting the scene but not, and flat coming out of the film, I feel it might actually be a better choice for young children under 5. And then the original, for this very reason, the T scenes feel more clinical when realistic, therefore they are not as devastating to the viewer. If a child can handle a nature documentary where animals are in peril, they should be able to handle what they see in this remake. And I know when my brother used to watch the original, he would get very upset at the dramatic scene, and I don't think that would be that. In case my friend disagree with me, and I feel might it be scarier to young kids because it is more realistic. So I suppose it depends on the child. It is less emotionally manipulative than the original, but that also means it is less impactful. Unfortunately, this leak of emotion investment Stripe's line of what makes it special. It becomes an exercise in checking off boxes from the story that we know and love instead of anything remotely memorable. The recent version of DBO had lots of problem, but at least there was some attempt to offer a new take with different version of the characters. This is just planned. There are 2 ways around it. It's bland, blent, and bland. My advice is save your money, stay human, and B, the original classic film, Mufasa, only needs a fraction of 2019 N, King 1.6 billion box office to achieve a huge milestone. Mufasa. The Lion King has mess box of his expectation to meet after 2019 The Lion King, but it will still achieve huge milestone with a fraction of its overall cross. The prequel are equal to Jon Favreau, live action. The Lion King's comes 5 years after the remake of the beloved animated movie. Shattered box of projection. The 2019 movie overcame negative reviews to be one of the biggest box office hits of the year, grossing over $1.6 billion that snaggled Disney to look for ways to continue the franchise, bringing Aris Barry Jenkins' Mufasa and Scar Focus Parlay. The Line franchise has always been a huge draw for audience at the box office. The original 1994 or animated movie made $771 million, not adjusted for inflation during its original release, but its total now stands at $981 million, thanks to multiple relays over the years, making it Disney's highest-crossing 2D movie, the over $1 billion average of the animated and live-action F box office. All more pressure on Mufasa to be big hit, while it's unclear exactly how mighty the latest franchise entry will be with the audience. It should help the franchise cross a significant milestone. The Lion King is $356 million away from becoming a $3 billion franchise at the box office heading into Mufasa. The Lion King, the Lion King franchise has a box office total fit for the King of the Jungle. The franchise has made over $2.6 billion at the box office by combining the earning of 1994 animated film and 2019 live-action remake. To be more specific, the original film made $981 and the remaining accumulated $1 SP6 that brings the Lion King franchise box office to $26 billion, which only $356 billion away from surpassing the $3 billion mark. Becoming a $3 billion franchise at the box office is a fairly big deal for the Lion King. There are several sprawling franchises that have suppressed this total throughout history, but doing so with only 3 films would be quite impressive. That's something not even Star Wars, Harry Potter, Transformer Despicable, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe could do. In fact, The Lion King is only the second movie franchise to hit $3 billion with 3 films are favored as jams. Cameron's Sacrifice series Avar did in 2, Will Mufasa. The Lion King's B office make enough to achieve this. Milestone Mufasa. The Lion King is left in a position where it does not have to worry about matching 2019 live-action's movie, box office haul, to help the franchise cross $3 million worldwide. The $356 million needed means Masa only has to make a little more than 20% of the Lion King's box office for the franchise to move into this new There is a reasonable expectation that MFA will not come close to it. Producers' $1.6 billion haul. So disre in earning is coming, but to dropping, but 80% is not likely, unless his copy is Joker. Fu RDX the early signer positive for Mufasa. The Lion King box office when it comes to making at least $356 million worldwide box office. Pros long-range projection of its opening weekend put it at 55 to 85 million. The movie is likely to be a big hit with families over the Christmas holiday season and could only pick up momentum as the release date closer had in the love that other countries have for The Lion King and Mufasa. The Lion King seemingly should have title issue, making it past and benchmark whether it becomes a hit. Overall is another story. The one scene in 2019 live-action The Lion King that is real, and not CGI 2019. The Lion King faced plenty of criticism for it, CGI retelling of the classic Disney story, but the film was still an enormous force to be reckoned with at the box office that helped blusters the company continuing trend of live-action remakes of their most popular animated works. The 2019 remake of The Lion King again tells of Simba's journey with brand new voice performances and visual choices that give it a unique style, separating it from its 1994 counterpart, despite many similarities between the two Lion King adaptations. The decision to retell The Lion King using CGI characters and location was a controversial one, but it ultimately paid off with some beautiful scenery and more sprawling landscape that helped emphasize the poor scale of this narrative. There were unable complaint about this decision, which is why the Mufasa skull is supposedly changing this visual choice, although many audience may not have noticed that one scene in the movie didn't actually include any CGI at all. The Lion King's opening scene was practically filmed in Africa. The opening scene of Jon Favreau Lion King remake is the only part of the movie that was not created using computer imaginary. The sequence was short and location in Africa, depicting the train of the desert and the PR exactly as they are in real life. The director recently revealed this on X, as the scene is so brief that it's almost impossible to know it, and he had not been brought up before the decision to open The Lion King with a reelish of the African PLS is a smart one that helps build the film's realism and gradually introduce the audience to its CGIA style. Without this small movement of imaginary, it would have been more difficult to get used to the uncanny animals and their computer-animated movement. This chart places the audience straight into the location and makes the transition less ching. While 2019 The Lion King only include one real short, although the inclusion of this real-life shake is a nice touch. It would have been too difficult to adopt the same approach for the scene where animals are involved, which is the majority of the film. VFX artist has mixed opinions on The Lion King use of CGI, but admit the film made the right decision of sticking to one medium rather than flicking between CGI and real animals. Since there are no animals involved in this opening shot, it was a smart and fiable decision to ditch the CGI for this The Lion King movement, but any longer would have been difficult. Does The Lion King 2019 have an end credit scene? Disney's The Lion King 2019 is a photo CGI remake of the animated classic, but does it have an unit scene teasing a sequel? The Lion King is the latest movie from Disney animated classic W to get the live action treatment following the lives of SRE Beauty and the Beast and the Jungle Book. While each of those movies had human characters, thought The Lion King does not, and it's not technically live action as a result. Instead, director John F.B.R.A. put a hyper-realistic spin on The Lion King using CGI, while the majority of the story remains the same for the remake of The Lion King Disney Assemble, an all-star cast that include the likes of Donald Groh as Simba, Beyond Knowledge Carter as Nala, Shal-Ir as Scar, S.E. Ran as Pumbaa, Billy E.R. as Demon, John Oliver as Zazu, and Alri V as Robbie as seen in the Lion King's trailers. The sea comes together to put a new spin on the beloved tale of loans and other wild animals, acting out a loose mutation of William Shakespeare's Hamlet, given how beloved the 1994 animated version of The Lion King is. By many Disney fans, Fava's remake is one of the Mouse House most anticipated movies of the years, and now it's hitting theaters with The Lion King releasing a round-the-world movie. Goes, maybe, wondering if there's anything after the credit that they need to stick around for. The Lion King 2019 does not have a post-credit scene or any other extra scene or Easter egg of after the credit finish rolling to. The credits are always worth watching to see who is involved in the making of the movies. Who is checking out The Lion King in theater should not expect any end credit scene after the film. While the original animated lion action did not have a theatrical Roddy sequel, it did receive 2 DTO video follow-ups. The Lion King to Simba's PR about Simba's own daughter, and the Lion King one that revolved around Teen and Pumbaa. So there's a material for a potential sequel to this year's movie, although Simba's PRDE is still a beloved animated movie among Lion King fans. It's unclear if Disney is open to making a CGI sequel. The only sequel to one of their live-action properties that's released so far was 2016, Alice T. the Looking Glass, which fled measurably. However, Disney does have Mice at Mistress of Evil releasing this year, and The Jungle Book 2 in the verse. So a sequel seems possible. Of course, post-credit scene doesn't necessarily need to set up a sequel. In fact, animated Disney movies have included post-credit scene that are simply extra jokes added into the movie. It certainly would have made sense to do something like with The Lion Kings, especially given the comedic talent of Rogan Aisher and Oliver. But Favre chose to forge any kind of joke or extra Easter egg at the end of the line, King. So, movie, of course, checking out Disney, lest in theater simply need to know that there's no The Lion King post-credit scene to wait around for at the end of the film. Disney money-sping decision to recycle his animated catalog with like-action remake Continue Space. In the past few years, we have had Tim, Bon Alice in Wonderland, and Dumbo and Eberrock, Sandria Bill Connor, the Beauty and Beast, and Kai Aladdin. Coming up are Nikki Kos, Mulan, Rob Marshall, The Little Mermaid, and many more. Although Conley profitable, the reason for those robots' existence remains. Cannibal did Guillermo Boston make a better build than the drawn star of Disney 1991 animation, just because she is real with this new and particularly faithful version of The Lion King. However, the question is not with a live-action remake and improve on an animated classic. Rather, it's what we should call an animated movie that enthrallingly mimics reality while featuring no live action whatsoever. Anyone who has enjoyed an affect lad in 21st century superhero movie will know the entire sequence, and indeed, characters are efficiently high-tech animation. Iron Man director John F. 2016 remake of The Jungle Book was ballot as part of Disney's live-action slate, but beyond the figure of Neil Satis Mole. Almost nothing in the film was live for The Life the Lion King, which features no human character. Favre has simply taken things to other logical conclusion, using cutting technology to create something that looks absolutely real, while remaining absolutely unreal. We open with the carinal of Pentry, lifelike creature, from the crawling art to the leaping Ardell, merrily gambling through the circle of life, remembering that sense of wonder you feel, seeing the majestic heads of dinosaurs for the first time in Jurassic. Parche got that same sensation castling at the Frockling Beast, as they follow the familiar story of a young L struggle to live up to his adult-sized fathers, wearing with I should be uploading the animators or animal trainers, while Aaron is, the Chronicles of Narnia movies may have SED with an ear of digital, efficiently DE to go. Mufasa may look so neutral you feel you could reach out, and sainted as far the Swana landscape. Their apparent tangibility seems perfect, suited to the phrase that Eos throughout The Lion King everything the light touches it says, and metographer Calypse Dentel had physically ventures into another world. Bee and the honey doctor of an everlasting magic hours, equally well walked are the hunting horse of the expedition to find the elephant's graveyard and the barren landscapes of the post. Maafa Pride lands heavy on the CCAUs. All these settings were designed within a game engine that renders as virtual environments through which a camera crew could move, Ming the angels and impactions of live-action shooting. The effect is impressive, landing an apparate human touch to a computer generated toward creating the crossly physical illusion of Cintiq. There are problems with this format. It's one thing seeing a cartoon line SN, but watching photo, realistic recreation of animal speaking with busting into song is a log together. Harder to swallow as ever, the mouth move are an issue, but the main stumbling block is conceptual rather than technical. Does photorealism actually self, such as integrity? Vestical narrative on stage, The Light King became a huge hit because the thetical technique used to tell his study story required the audience to use their imagination. There's a little sped left for that kind of creative experience here. Os every details is filled in, down to the very last pixel in the Vice cast, Donald Glover, and beyond Gar make the roles of Simba and end their own, while John Olivers take over from Renason as new reading Oral Zazu. Once again, Scar's inherent weakness is signaled not only by his lackey beat, but by the fact that he is played by a British actor with impressive Shakespearean senile chal edge for giving Jeremy Ayon, and known for his money in the A ankle, Stack Sithin and Billy Aor have fun as Vidu Pomba and Mika Teen, respectively, reminding us the Hakuna Matata is basically the beer necessities with B and as the teach. Simba to chill out and eat scrubs, concluding the life is now not a self-sustaining circle, but a meaningless line of indifferences. Meanwhile, original star, Jamsey Johns reign his little, as most trusted wise in the world, in the role of Mufasa, delivering industrial strength words of SPI wisdom about, and ANC looking down for the sky, New songs await the old favorites while, and Simmer Scud doesn't so much rewrite the original as Subst reconfigures its arch-ch. I'm still not sure what the B of it all is, but it has offered a vision of a feature in which the traditional distinction between the action and animation have dissolved into nothing. Lest The Lion King, it may be a long time before viewers can appreciate the 2019 remake of the 1994 version was Helmet and Bambi on the free bill, a childhood-shaping Oscar-winning blockbuster, the second highest-grossing movie feature film of its calendar. Year one of the last great and drawn Disney animated features. Pixar's original Toy Story came out 18 months later and a tear-producing machine. This remake was controversial long before it opened, mainly because it seems to take the Disney.com's new bending strategy, making beloved animated films as CGI-dependent live-action spectaculars. So, its most drastic conclusion, it sets up the same story with different actors, different arrangements of songs and soundtrack keys, couple of original tones, few FR scenes, and sequence, and of course photo-realistic animals. The letter R, the movie's main sailing P. So believable that one of my kids remarked afterward that sitting through the film was like watching a nature documentary on mute, while the soundtrack to original The Lion King played in the background. But here's the thing. The movie is helmed by a Disney veteran actor, director John Fass, who is great at this kind of thing. And this might be his best director film if you judge badly in terms of how the scenes and sequence have been framed, lit, and cut together. The cinematographer is Cab Daysel, who showed some of the greatest live-action animal adventure in movie history, including The Black Stallion, and this protection straightforwardly owns the notion of realness, modeling its animals on actual creatures, defining character more throughout body type and ingenious details of movement and the facial expression, which might have looked kind of creepy here. Honestly, the animals are a little bit creepy at times. That. As creepy as it, Andy Sacey's Molly, where you sometime felt as if you were watching top-secret footage of Genspit. Animal Humans Favre broke into filmmaking with such hip indie comedies as Swingers and Me, then improbably transforms himself into a junior version of Steven Spielberg or James Cameron, overseeing the biggest of big-budget properties, including the fast-through Iron Man films and Disney's recent hyper-real make of The Jungle Book. This may be his most neat challenge. Or at least his most provocative, if you cherish the source material. The very idea of Pumming to remake Disney's most financially successful period animated film with the Stoos in computer-generated imaginary, while continually reminding people of the original by recycling the same story and music and many of the same iconic shorts and locations. Including the line Dizzy shape, PR Rock is as close as Hollywood gets. 2 courting charges of Bimmy visually. The original was 88 minutes worth of stylized paintings in motion, like a child's storybook come to life, but with expressionistic or SCC elements, like the freaky green highlight in the Be Prepared sequence, and the Saint Light's hellfire and skewed camera angles during the end battle that trickled the sensibility of film buff parents. In contrast, his anew Lion King is dated deeply in the reel from its plain, sometimes drag colors to the animals, interly rendered pond structure muscles. And for even when the characters are singing the familiar songs and repeating the familiar lines, R1 Hora, and oddly postmodern internal courting. Another Disney movie, the entire crew is working double overtime to convince you that these creatures exist that they for and drop Scott on the jungle floor, Favreau and Donnell camera. This is a digital movie built from ones and zeros, follows closely behind animals. As the cloth grassland, scale cliff and hills, table and wrestle and fight and rums through water and rain. It's as if they were real animals with intelligence and essay who allowed camera CS to follow them rather than eating them. Disney always release animal documentaries in addition to their animated and live-action features. And this one sometimes feels like a very basic one from the 1950s, where an editor would cut to an unremarkable closer for a beer painting in the summer heat. And the narrator would tells you it was said because it's Mom. It's impossible to deny that this movie represents a technical M. Stone. We have seen digitized version of real animal before, perhaps most strikingly in the recent Planet of the Apes movies and in Fava's Jungle Book. But they are presented so matter-of-factly by favor that if they did not talk and sing, and if you squire just a bit, you had never know that they were not the real deal. And the filmmaking itself adds credibility. The camera, again, there is no camera, just CGI seems to have weight when it flies over Africa. You had swear it had been attached to an actual helicopter when the elder Lion King Mufasa Jones, the only actor from the original reprising this part skill, the W's of a can, to rescue his son from rampaging wild beast unleashed by his able brother Scar. It's clear that the filmmaker have put a lot of thought into how a 400B Alpha Parador would do such a thing, whereas the original was content with the line clamps up the rocks. Of course, there's something to be said of sticking to the line shims of the rock, rather than proving to know that how to answer the question. Hard as a 400B line clamps up a rock. The D-joke is. Anyway, he wants to, but animator needs more director than that. It's easy to make a case that lions and Haas and boar and hornbill and Anop, strong with ink and pit, with an eye towards the simple J-daring cure, rather than nature channel texture registered as more emotional, real than things that might be mistaken for photos, especially when they are doing wonder-word play and delivering sad monologues and singing songs by Elton John and Tim Race. But that doesn't fly, not anymore, because the movie industry has conditioned audience to think that reality and believability are the greatest of all creative virtues, and that the live-action blockbuster is the best, most respectively way to tell a story. That's why visually tearing animated films like Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse only make a friction of the box office haul of more literal-minded live-action Marvel movies. And it's why almost every spectacle travel live action, and I have the blockbuster from Marvel and DC to the Star Wars franchise and the American Godzilla films and the Transformers, and even Paxer are obsessed with making sure the counter drops and PID and glass and higher and skin and fire and water looked photographically real, and that everything moves. Believably, even you are watching Vice, cracking toys or combat droid or city, destroying cow to quite a friend if you follow the creative impulse too selfishly. It's like using a magic V to make a Tios where you fall on this stew. Is anyone guess if you care about it all, you might not. And that's okay. But it should be said that even if you are not obsessed with Sanma MTO, this film is still a fascinating anistic experience and less resumptions of F's previous photo-listic Disney animated picture, The Jungle Book, than August's 1998 remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho-A. Cruster that was not quite short, for short, but got rarely close. Watching The Lion King remind me of seeing the soccer remake in the theater and hearing people scream "ee" for